Hello students, welcome back. In our previous session, we had done the summary and the themes of the poem The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. Today, we shall continue the same. By the end of this video, you will be able to understand the form and structure of the poem and understand the title of the poem. Now, first of all, let us understand what is form. Form in poetry can be understood as the physical structure of the poem, the length of the lines, the rhyme scheme, meters, and repetition. So, The Darkling Thrush is a lyric poem with 4 8-line stanzas with an A-B C-D rhyme scheme. Now, what is a lyric? A lyric poem is a short, highly musical verse that conveys powerful feelings. The poet may use rhyme, meter, or other literary devices to create a song-like quality. Lyric poetry doesn't have to tell a story. A lyric poem is a private expression of emotion of a single speaker. So, in The Darkling Thrush, the poet has expressed his feelings at the end of the 19th century and his doubts and uncertainty about the 20th century. So, the poem The Darkling Thrush is a lyric poem. Now, how many stanzas are there? There are 4 stanzas. And how many lines in each stanza? 8 lines. Okay? The rhyme scheme used in the poem is A, B, C, D. That is, the first line rhymes with the third line. Second line rhymes with the fourth line. Fifth line rhymes with the seventh line. And sixth line rhymes with the eighth line. Okay, so I hope the rhyme scheme is clear to you all. Now let's read further. It is written in iambic tetrameter with lines 1, 3, 5 and 7 carrying 4 stressed syllables and iambic trimeter with lines 2, 4, 6 and 8 carrying 3 stressed syllables. Now children, the meter of the poem is iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. Now what is meter? Meter is the basic rhythmic structure of a verse of lines in a poem. Observe these lines. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey. The words have been written according to their syllabic breakups. That is, the words are divided into small units according to their vowel sounds. For example, the word coppice, it is written as cop-pice. So this is the syllabic breakup of coppice. And spectre, it is written as spectre. So this is the syllabic breakup of spectre. Now the words that are bold are stressed syllables. All the bold words are stressed syllables. So when I read these lines, it will be like, I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey. So while reading, I am stressing the words that are bold ones. Thus, this stress in these words adds rhythmic quality to these lines. The tune is something like da-dum, 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 where I am stressing the second part, dum, da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. So in the first line, we have iambic tetrameter, where we have 4 stressed syllables, lent, pon, cop and gate. So these are 4 stressed syllables. So one unstressed syllable is followed by one stressed syllable. We can see one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable in this line. So in the next line we have iambic tetrameter. Now look at this next line. How many stressed syllables are there? Frost, speck and grey. 3. So there are 3 stressed syllables. So one unstressed syllable is followed by one stressed syllable and total number of stressed syllables here is 3. So this is iambic trimeter. Now let's read further. The plain steady rhythm and rhyme scheme of Hardy's hymn-like meter provides a kind of oral blank canvas allowing individual words to sound out with particular clarity. Underline the word oral and write down related to the sense of hearing. So, as the same rhythm is followed throughout the poem, something that is found in hymns, so this steady rhythm allows us to read or hear each word with clarity. Now, another section under form is sibilance. Now, what is sibilance? Sibilance is a more specific type of alliteration that relies on the repetition of soft consonant sounds in words to create a hissing sound. So, sibilance in the first three lines of the poem creates a whispery atmosphere, a touch of wind among the stiffened branches, which then falls still with the alliteration free neutrality of the weakening eye of day. So, student, sibilance is actually a figure of speech in which hissing sound is created within a group of words through the repetition of sounds. This is the sound of S. For example, in coppice, spectre, dregs, desolate. So, this is hissing sound of S. Thus, here the poet has used sibilance. So, the use of sibilance in these lines gives an impression of sound of wind among the trees. And then in the fourth line, finally, there is no hissing sound when the poet says the weakening eye of day. Let's proceed to next slide. There are plenty of heavy, gloomy G sounds, gate, grey, dregs. So we have the heavy sound of G. G can have two sounds, J and G. So here we have the heavy sound, G sound in gate, grey and dregs. Then there are hard C sounds in stanza 2, copse, crypt, cloudy canopy. So we have two sounds of C as S and K, and here we have the hard sound of C, the K sound in copse, crypt, cloudy and canopy, which evoke perhaps the funeral, march and burial of the personified century. Underline the word funeral and write down the ceremony for burying or burning the body of a dead person. So all the hard C sounds evoke a feeling as if the poet is describing the funeral march of the dead 19th century. Now let's move to next slide. Finally, the beautiful unexpected word illimited used for the singing of the bird, the flowing double L conveys the sense and sound of joy. Now children, the poet has created this word illimited himself, and this word adds to the sound of joy in the poem. What kind of joy? Illimited joy. So it adds to the feeling of joy. The Darkling thrush can also be said to be an elegy. Now, what is an elegy? Elegy is a melancholy, mournful poem lamenting for the dead or a funeral song. Underline the word melancholy and write down sadness. Mournful, sad, and lamenting means expressing sorrow. So, an elegy is a poem that laments the death of somebody. It expresses sorrow over the death of someone. It is an elegy in the sense of the despair and hopelessness it depicts at the passing of a century. Despair means hopelessness. So, the Darkling Thrush is a lyric poem, but to a certain extent it can be considered as an elegy as it mourns or laments the death of the 19th century. It is not the lamenting of the death of a person, but the death of a century. Now let's move to the next slide. Diction. Now what is diction? Diction refers to an author's word choice. So diction means the choice of words which the author has for writing his poem. Thomas Hardy is known for his innovative use of English language, and he frequently coined new words in his poetry. Underline the word coined and write down invented a new word or phrase. He called words created for a single occasion nonce words. So children, Thomas Hardy often created new words to use in his poems, and he named these words nonce words. These words were used only once. He called these words nonce words. In the poem The Darkling Thrush, Hardy has used new words like outlet, blast beruffled, and spectre grey to fit the meter and rhyme scheme of the poem. So, children, you can see here he has joined two words, out and lent. Here, blast and beruffled. Then, spectre and grey. These words have been joined to form new words. So, he called these words nonce words. He was especially deft at creating compound words such as the letter to. Deft means skillful. Compound words means two or more words linked together to produce a word with a new meaning. So children, the last two words, blast beruffled and spectre grey, these are the words which are compound words. Hardy also used unusual words used by other poets. The unusual word darkling, for example, was used by John Keats in Ode to a Nightingale and by Matthew Arnold in Dover Beach. So, children, the word darkling is a very unusual word. It was not coined by Thomas Hardy himself. Actually, this word was used by John Keats in his poem Ode to a Nightingale. Even Matthew Arnold has used the word darkling in his poem Dover Beach, which is another poem depicting the Victorian era. So I hope diction is clear to you. Now let us understand the title of the poem. The word darkling has a history in poetry. The word goes back to the mid 15th century. Milton, in Paradise Lost, Book 2, described the nightingale. The wakeful bird sings darkling, and in shadiest covert it tunes her nocturnal note. Keats used the word in his Ode to Nightingale, darkling I listen. Matthew Arnold in Dover Beach wrote about the darkling plain. So as discussed earlier, the word darkling was used earlier by other poets in the past. John Milton, in his book The Paradise Lost, Book 2, used the word darkling to describe a nightingale. Similarly, John Keats and Matthew Arnold used the word darkling to refer to a bird and darkling plain respectively in their poems. Similarly, there is a tradition of poems about birds like Keats' Ode to a Nightingale, Shelley's To a Skylark, and a number of poems by Wordsworth. So many poets have written poems about birds like Ode to Nightingale by Keats and To a Skylark by Shelley and many other poems by William Wordsworth. The word darkling corresponds to two meanings in the poem, in the dark and obscure. Correspond means have a close similarity. Obscure means not known to many people. So the word darkling has two meanings in the poem. The first meaning is in the dark and the second meaning is not known to many people. In the title of the poem, The Darkling Thrush, Hardy appears to have consciously used words with a long poetic history. The word darkling means in darkness or becoming dark. The speaker in the poem is able to see the landscape, but the sun is weakening, not completely set. The landscape that appears to him is barren and grey like a ghost. The day is ending and the sun is setting, making the twilight desolate. Desolate means miserable. So as the sun is setting and the day is ending, it is getting dark. So this image of darkness makes even the twilight miserable. In the first two stanzas of the poem, the world appears to be physically dead. There is little to see in the spectre grey landscape. The eye of day is weak. Winter's dregs offer little to satisfy the human need of warmth. So the scene described on the wintry evening is gloomy. The landscape is spectre grey. Light of the sun is fading fast and the remaining part of the winter does not provide warmth which human beings need. Heaviness characterized the sense of touch, as suggested by Hardy's use of lent to describe the speaker's physical posture in the scene. So, children, even the speaker in the poem is not standing erect, he is leaning, which indicates that the speaker is gloomy, he is in a hopeless mood. Finally, there is no sound at all. The image of tangled vine stems resembling strings of broken lyres vividly conveys the utter silence of the scene. Underline the word lyres. Now, what is a lyre? A lyre is a U shaped string instrument. So, the vine stems are compared to broken lyres. There is no music, no harmony, no sound at all. So, this indicates the utter silence of the wintry evening. The second stanza extends this death sense to include time as well as space. The landscape seems to represent the corpse of the century that is ending or dying. The very pulse of creation is dead and the nature is at a standstill. There is no hope for the next spring to come. So, in the second stanza, the poet compares the features of landscape to that of a corpse, the corpse of the passing old century. He compares the shrill sound of the cold wind with death lament, and the cloudy canopy is the cover of the tomb of the 19th century. He also describes the seeds which were fresh and full of vitality during the spring season, but now are shrunken, hard, and dry. The very pulse of creation is dead, and the nature is now at a standstill. That is, there is no hope for the next spring to come. In the last two stanzas, nature, as represented by the singing thrush, displays a sudden vigor. Here too, nature is senseless inasmuch as a song does not arise from anything perceived in terrestrial things. That is, the song is not inspired by anything in the immediate scene or anything that the poet might understand as a reason for the song. Underline the word vigor and write down effort, energy, and enthusiasm. Underline perceived and write down seen. Terrestrial means on or relating to the earth. So, in the third stanza, the poet introduces a thrush that is singing with vigor. But here also, nature appears to be senseless, as the speaker doesn't find any reason for the song in the terrestrial things, that is, in the things on the earth, nearby or far. He doesn't find any reason for the bird to sing. The frailty of the bird itself, gaunt and small, with blast beruffled plumage, also prevents any song. Underline the word frailty and write down weakness. The bird is aged, weak, and thin. Its feathers have been battered by stormy winds. This condition also prevents the speaker to find any reason for the bird to sing. If the bird is in the dark, singing at night, and flinging its soul into the growing gloom, it appears to be singing for obscure reasons. Underline the word flinging, write down throwing, obscure, not known to many people. So, the situation in which the bird sings and the condition of the bird leave it unclear why the bird is singing. Whatever prompts the bird's song is not evident to the poet. The ill-limited joy of the song and blessed hope it signifies appears to be a small compensation for the pain men and women endure and have endured through the century. Compensation means something awarded to someone in recognition of loss, suffering, or injury. So, the illimited joy and the blessed hope of the bird song can do little to provide comfort to the suffering mankind. It does not provide any comfort to the suffering mankind. If the bird sings while humanity confronts the desolation and its existence, the thrush's joy can only be heard as an ironic comment on humanity's joyless state. The song of the bird at night, though full of joy and hope, does not bring any hope for the future and is obscure as night. Thus, the Darkling Thrush is an apt title for the poem. Underline the word confronts, write down come face to face with, and desolation means misery. Obscure means not known to many people. So, if the bird sings in a situation where everything is gloomy and full of uncertainty, its joyful song appears to be an ironic comment on the joyless life of human beings. The bird's song does not bring any hope for the future. Thus, the reason for the bird's song is obscure. Hence, the word darkling is a suitable word as it is used in the sense of both darkness and obscurity. Thus, the title is appropriate. This brings us to the end of today's lesson. So, for your homework, do the homework given to you in your SNAP homework. Thank you.